is Xander Rice-Hawkins, and I'm the Executive Director of Granite State Progress. Our group works to engage citizens in issues of immediate state and local concern. We are very concerned about the actions of James O'Keefe, a fellow who came to our state and committed acts of voter fraud with his team to prove a story he otherwise couldn't. We have with us today speakers from people from the American Way and from the legislative teams that are working to improve and secure our election laws. First, I'd like to thank Representative Bob Perry, who will be speaking with us today. Representative Bob Perry will actually be reading comments from Representative David Pierce from Hanover, who unfortunately is sick and unable to join us at the last moment. But Representative Perry has been serving on election law, is well versed, and will be filling in for us today.
Good morning. As was just stated, I will be reciting the comments of David Pierce, who was unable to be here today. Good morning. I am David Pierce, and I serve on the New Hampshire House Election Law Committee. Our committee is tasked with ensuring New Hampshire's election laws and procedures to ensure the ease, clarity, and integrity of a voting system that New Hampshire can be proud of, and that voter participation in our state stays among the best in the country. Last year, some of my House colleagues proposed that New Hampshire adopt a slate of bills that would make it so difficult for our citizens to cast their ballot that it would have effectively denied thousands of New Hampshire citizens the right to vote. But New Hampshire decided a long time ago that citizens should not face unreasonable barriers to voting. For instance, we used to require people to own property to be able to vote, to be white, and to be able to vote, to pay a poll tax to be able to vote, to be a male to be able to vote, and even be of a certain religion or not to be able to vote. In this country, we are much better than that. We have struggled and endured much to improve our election laws, to make voting fair and accessible, and we have created systems to ensure the integrity of these elections. It is these same laws that James O'Keefe and Project Veritas broke during our most recent election, and for that they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. His little publicity stunt was a crime, but I fear it will be used by the extremists in the House to pass laws to curb the fundamental right of thousands of Granite staters to cast their vote and choose their government. Let's step back for a moment and think about Mr. O'Keefe's actions and what it says about his understanding of public policy. First, he and his team thought that they would somehow make requests for ballots by using certain words that they would not be committing fraud. O'Keefe's ignorance of the tough election protections we currently have in the books shows that Mr. O'Keefe didn't read the very law he sought to break. And if he didn't understand how our election protections work enough to keep himself out of trouble, it is not a stretch to say that he has not done the homework to understand the real concerns that have been raised about the legislation he himself supports. Personally, I actually don't have a problem with showing photo identification when I go to the polls, so a photo ID law won't affect me. I drive from Etna to Concord a few times a week. My driver's license is valid, and I have all the resources I would need to obtain in any other form of government-issued ID that passes the requirements that some of the bills require. But I am a state representative and have a sacred responsibility to think about how legislation will impact all of my constituents and the voters of New Hampshire, not just those who share my circumstances. The elderly, the disabled, and the young adults in our community could effectively lose their right to vote if these restrictive photo ID requirements are enacted. I believe that every qualified voter in New Hampshire is constitutionally entitled to cast his or her vote and know with certainty that his vote will be counted. They shouldn't be turned away at the door or denied the right to cast a real ballot. I'm sorry to say, though, that not every House member shares my opinion. If Project Veritas had been involved in the same discussions our election law committee has had, it would have known that a bill failed at the State House last year after a bipartisan effort called it unworkable and flawed because it did not guarantee our citizens fundamental right to vote. They also would have known that I and several others tried to amend the bill to improve it and make voting in New Hampshire accessible to all qualified voters. But our efforts fell on deaf ears from House leadership. Much like that House leadership, James O'Keefe had a singular agenda when he came to New Hampshire, and cooperation and understanding wasn't a part of it. Mr. O'Keefe made several mistakes here, most of all breaking our state election laws. I fully support the New Hampshire Attorney General enforcing them immediately. Thank you.